Hello, thanks for watching. This is the first in a series of videos analyzing the political process of rebuilding the Edenville and Sanford dams, the failure of which caused catastrophic flooding in the spring of 2020. This is a complex story with many layers. All of the information presented is my understanding of what is true. While many of the facts are easy to ascertain, there are at least a few finer points that are a bit more confusing or even controversial. History. According to Wikipedia, Edenville Dam was constructed in 1924 for the purpose of flood control and hydroelectric power. Edenville Dam is an earthen embankment dam at the confluence of the Tittabawassee and Tobacco rivers, forming Wixom Lake. The dam is about 1 mile north of Edenville, stretching across the border of Midland and Gladwin counties. It is 54 feet tall, and according to different sources, it's either 6,200 feet or 6,600 feet long, which works out to about 1 1/4 miles, or about 2,000 meters. The dam was built by Frank Isaac Wixom, after whom the reservoir formed by the dam is named. The dam was previously owned and operated by Wolverine Power Corporation for many years, and in June of 2004 transferred ownership to Boyce Hydro, a company based in Edenville, which also owned 3 other hydroelectric facilities on the Tittabawassee: the Secord, Smallwood, and Sanford dams, each creating a reservoir or lake with the same name as the respective dam. Collectively, these are referred to as the 4 lakes. The Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, or FERC, identified deficiencies with the dams that needed to be addressed more than 20 years ago when the dams were then owned by Wolverine Power. Measures were never taken to address these deficiencies, and in 2018, FERC revoked the license of Boyce Hydro, taking away the company's ability to generate electricity and therefore revenue. Reports are that from 2014 to 2019, Boyce Hydro was paid nearly $14 million for the electricity generated by the 4 dams. In September of 2018, a small group of lake property owners created a nonprofit called the 4 Lakes Task Force. In May of 2019, approximately 1 year before the dam failures, a circuit court judge established the 4 Lakes Special Assessment District and recognized the authority of the 4 Lakes Task Force as the county delegated authority to acquire, repair, and operate the 4 dams on behalf of Midland and Gladwin counties. The creation of the Special Assessment District was presumably created in accordance with Michigan law under Part 307, which requires mailing a notice to each taxpayer that was to be affected and publishing the court date in 1 or more newspapers. Some property owners indicate they were not given notice or were given notice of an incorrect date. Most people likely received notice but had little understanding of what the creation of this special assessment district would mean for their future. Once established, homeowners really took notice of a new proposal that would require each lakefront parcel to be taxed or assessed $350 annually, while the backlots were to be assessed $88. These funds were to be utilized to purchase and maintain the dams and associated properties and ensure the long-term viability of the 4 lakes. This caused quite a stir with many property owners whom up until this point had never heard of 4 Lakes Task Force. The people did not vote for this or have any input in the process or the amount of the assessment. They were simply informed that this new nonprofit entity is now their delegated authority and as such has the power to tax without the consent of the people. This Special Assessment District, or SAD, is the focal point of the story. Back to 2018, once the license to generate electricity had been revoked, Boyce was accused of lowering the lake levels, which negatively impacted those who live on the lakes or use them for recreation. The state of Michigan took action to force Boyce Hydro to raise the lake levels, claiming that Boyce's actions negatively impacted freshwater mussels. I'd just like to mention that people often mistakenly refer to these as zebra mussels, which are an invasive species, when in fact the mussels in Wixom Lake were snuffbox mussels. But I digress. Boyce Hydro argued it opened the gates and dropped the lake levels as a preemptive safety measure to ensure dam safety during winter conditions. So fast forward to April 29th of 2020, Boyce Hydro sues the state in Grand Rapids Federal Court, arguing that the state lacks scientific validation for its endangered species concerns and should allow drawdowns. May 1st of 2020, the Attorney General's Office files a lawsuit against Boyce Hydro in Ingham County Circuit Court. It accuses Boyce of dramatically lowering the water levels in Wixom Lake in 2018 and 2019, destroying thousands of freshwater mussels. So essentially, Boyce Hydro argues that they wanted to lower the lake levels because they had safety concerns, and the state of Michigan forced the lake levels to be raised out of concern for freshwater mussels. And this occurred just days before the catastrophic floods. The argument here is that had the lake levels been lowered, the dams likely would not have failed. So that happened on May 1st. May 17th brings heavy rains to the region, raising the lake levels dramatically. By May 19th, many homes were flooded as the four lakes and the Tittabawassee River continued to rise. Just before dark on May 19th, 2020, the Edenville Dam fails as water breached the earthen dike. This in turn caused the earthen portion of the dam on Sanford Lake to fail a short time later, as it was inundated with all the water now flowing uncontrollably out of Wixom Lake. This resulted in catastrophic flooding downstream, especially in downtown Sanford and the city of Midland. For those living on Wixom and Sanford Lakes, who just hours earlier were suffering from severe flooding, they now had a new disaster. Like some kind of dreadful nightmare, they awake the next morning to see all of the water had drained out of the lake. To add insult to injury, many of the wells began to run dry as the water table dropped with the level of the lakes. After the catastrophe, people began paying more attention to the Four Lakes Task Force and the special assessment, as the new estimate for repairs is a whopping $338 million. State law required this type of special assessment be financed for no longer than 10 years. It was apparently decided that the annual amount each property owner would be required to pay simply would not work. I did not see these numbers, but estimate they were in the $10,000 to $12,000 per year range. This is in addition to any operating assessments or property taxes already being assessed. Members of the Four Lakes Task Force were able to get the Michigan legislature to pass and the governor to sign into law a revision that allows the time frame to be extended from 10 to a maximum of 40 years. So according to the Four Lakes Task Force website, they estimate the base case for a 30-year assessment on each property on Sanford Lake is predicted to be as high as $3,098 per year, plus $100 to $150 per year for operating costs. That's $3,248 annually, due at the same time and in the same manner as ordinary property tax. I chose Sanford Lake in this example as it is the most expensive. By the way, base case is a noun, and it means, in reference to a financial model or financial projections, the expected case of the model using the assumptions that management deems most likely to occur. Residents of Secord and Smallwood Lakes have a significantly lower tax because those dams did not fail and will cost a lot less money to repair or bring up to modern standards. The least expensive is Secord, where the 30-year option is only predicted to cost $445 plus $100 to $150 in annual operating expenses, which on the lower end works out to a much more manageable $545 annually. The task force was created with the intention of maintaining existing dams with a relatively modest assessment, but is now being used to propose huge assessments and take on the massive project of rebuilding the dams. What is a special assessment? It is similar to a general property tax, except it is only levied on properties within a geographical boundary, and all properties that are assessed typically must receive a benefit equal to the amount of the assessment. Often, special assessments are utilized for capital improvement projects like sidewalks. Unlike property taxes, which require a vote of the majority of the people and are assessed ad valorem, or based on property value, special assessments are typically arranged so each property pays the same amount. Or in many cases, like sidewalks, each property pays the same amount per foot of sidewalk, for instance. Unlike property taxes, citizens do not get any input on the amount of the assessment. Those in charge simply take the cost of a project, divide it among the number of properties in the special assessment district, and add that to the property tax statement. Another difference is that most municipalities are limited in the number of mills they can assess for property taxes, where a special assessment does not have this limit. There is essentially no limit to the amount of revenue that can be generated from a special assessment, so long as the money assessed is actually spent on the intended capital improvement project. I do not know if I stress this enough, but taxpayers do not get a say in the amount of the assessment. They just get told how much they need to pay. Among the areas of great concern regarding the assessment are people who live on two parcels. For instance, some lake lots were initially created with the intention of a trailer park or mobile home community and are very small. Over time, some of these areas had houses built on them instead, and some of these homeowners have a house built on two very small lots. Will they be assessed for each lot and essentially have to pay double? How about if you are a homeowner and refinance or sell your home? Does the total amount of the assessment need to be paid at that moment? Or can the new owner simply take over making the annual payment? The answer to these questions remain unclear. Special assessment districts have rules, and the rules for this particular SAD are found in Act 451 of 1994, Part 307. Section 30702 reads in part, "The county board may delegate powers and duties under this part to that county's commissioner, road commission, or other delegated authority." Midland and Gladwin counties have chosen 4 Lakes Task Force to be their delegated authority, which gives this nonprofit, made up of a few individuals, the power to tax, negotiate, purchase, enter into contracts, etc., on behalf of the taxpayers. It is really remarkable that they would give this much authority to an organization that was heretofore a non-government entity. there are positive things about the task force and the Special Assessment District. In my opinion, this is the fastest way to rebuild the lakes and maintain local control. If the Army Corps of Engineers or the state of Michigan took over the project, it would likely take longer to complete and would no longer give local control of the lakes or dams. One question that has been asked is whether or not these dams will continue to generate environmentally friendly hydroelectric power. The nearby town of Beaverton owns a dam that feeds into what used to be Wixom Lake, and they generate nearly $200,000 a year in revenue. Boyce was generating about $2.8 million a year in revenue from the dams that are now being run by the Four Lakes Task Force. While this may not be enough to cover all costs associated with the project, it could certainly be used to defray some of the costs, and with modern, more efficient turbines, plus the ability to add additional units, there is an opportunity to generate hundreds of millions of dollars worth of electricity during the life of the project. Except, it appears that this type of special assessment district is explicitly prohibited from doing so. Rather than the citizens owning a project that is able to generate revenue to help offset costs, like their neighbors to the north, this delegated authority chose to go with a SAD created under Part 307, which means the lakefront property owners will have to foot the bill for the entire cost. The SAD also prevents the citizens in downstream communities who benefit from flood control from sharing the burden. Flood control. At first glance, the fact that dams provide flood control seems to be a no-brainer and could hardly be a topic of controversy. But apparently, if the dams provide flood control, this risks derailing the entire Special Assessment District project. There appears to be a concerted effort to change the purpose of the dams, or at least publicly claim the dams do not provide flood control. I encourage you to go to Wikipedia and search for Edenville Dam, and you will see that it currently reads, "The dam was built in 1924 for hydroelectric power." However, this was edited on November 18th of 2020. If you take a minute to look at the history of the page, you'll see that it used to read, "The dam was built in 1924 for hydroelectric power and for flood control." The Army Corps of Engineers keeps an inventory of dams, and they classify the primary purpose of this dam as flood control. Well, that about does it for this episode. I will continue to follow the story and try to take a closer look at some of the more controversial or confusing aspects of the Four Lakes Special Assessment District. If I missed anything, or if you spot any mistakes in the information presented, please comment below. Thanks for watching.